Renly gives him the business, saying, "The whole realm denies it, brother. Old men deny it with their death rattle, and unborn children deny it in their mothers' wombs. No one wants you for the king. Sorry."
What up, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full-spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. As always, I'm Nate, and joining me, my brother Zach.
What up?
That's this guy. We read A Song of Ice and Fire here. Currently, we're reading A Clash of Kings. We are full spoiler, so if you have not read the books, you should probably go do so and then come back. All our episodes are available, so you can always do that. Anyway, last episode, we were reading Arya. Arya 7.
A girl said a name.
A girl gave a name, and that name is dead.
In Harrenhal, Arya was diddy-bopping around as the mouse that she felt like under the feet of the High Lords. She saw Tywin Lannister doing his thing from Harrenhal, and Jack and Hagar returned with some of the Bloody Mummers, and he found her and told her that she saved 3 lives and therefore 3 lives are owed, so a girl can speak a name and he'll take care of the rest. And she did. At the end of the chapter, she gave him the name of Chiswick, and Chiswick ended up dead. And so Arya is all sorts of pumped because she feels like the ghost of Harrenhal, and she has this sort of unbridled power that she's never had before, which is the power over life and death. And so things at Harrenhal are heating up. And from Arya, we're going
to Mommy Dearest.
Mama Dearest.
Which I wanted to touch on before we even jump into the episode. That once again, Martin's chapter placement is just fucking on point. So we have a little cat here nestled between her daughters, Arya and Sansa. And so I just think that that's interesting. I'll probably touch upon it more once we get into the Sansa chapter, so we can kind of correlate all 3 and how that may have
especially this one in the middle with the brother relationship that she's
right.
trying to mend. And so last we had left Kat, she was sent as a envoy for Robb to King Renly's camp to try to make a peace with him and ally. Renly is not really taking the war seriously, at least through Kat's point of view. They are all Knights of Summer, as she calls it. We got to meet Brienne of Tarth, and Renly showed her the extent of his army, which is pretty massive. This time, we pick up with Kat as her and Hollis Mullen are the first to arrive at the meeting place. She can smell the salt from the sea.
Hollis Mullen immediately points out when they get to the top of this little hill, it's a grassy sward dotted with mushrooms, and he announces, "Oh, we're the first to arrive." Now, if you'll recall, he is
Captain Obvious,
known for pointing out the most obvious shit ever. So, from this point forward, we will recall that.
Yeah. She can smell the salt from the sea. It's heavy around her. There are stumps everywhere, as Stannis had felled most of the trees for his siege engines. And she wondered if Ned had stopped here on this grove on his way south to lift the siege of Storm's End. He had won a great victory that day, and all the more so because it was bloodless.
So I like this a lot. And it's funny because I thought it would actually be more of a talking point between her and Stannis, and it's only briefly touched upon, but Ned didn't really do shit that day.
Yeah.
He came up behind him and was like, "Hey, the war's over and we're here to tell you to stop." When really it was Davos and Stannis that kept the siege for as long as they did. Well, Stannis as long as he did, and then Davos to help keep them alive. But it's funny to see her point of view on it, the way that it's built up.
Ned's the hero.
And I think that that's across the land, besides, the small council who's always talked about Stannis being bitter
Ned
about
Stark
that shit.
who lifted the siege at Storm's End, and Stannis was the one who survived it, suffered through it.
Right.
But she's hoping that the gods will grant that she could do the same, make a bloodless end to some intense shit here at Storm's End. Even her own men had thought that she was mad to attend this meeting, and she doesn't really want to be here, but hopes to make the peace between these 2 brothers, even though it would be no easy thing.
Yeah, because her son, the king, commanded her to go down and do this kind of stuff, so she was going to at least try.
Yeah, and across the fields and ridges, she can see Storm's End rearing up against the sky, and she begins to recall its history. Now, I didn't really quote much of the history. I'm not going to go too much into it. If you want to know about the history, go and give The Great Castles of Westeros a read by Joe Buckley. It's a great read, and you can learn all about Storm's End. It's the first chapter.
Yeah, so as we are a full spoiler, we are assuming you're aware of the fact that this is a very big castle with very big, thick walls, and it's stood against some shit.
Yeah, he pissed off the gods, supposedly, and made stronger and stronger castles until eventually we got Storm's End. And it was Storm's End. It was a castle like no other. Stones fit so cunningly together that no wind could enter, and only one colossal drum tower, which served as granary, barracks, feast hall, and lord's dwelling all in one. Afar, it looked like a spiked fist atop an thrust arm.
So kind of like the Fist of the First Men?
Yeah, sort of.
So I do want to mention this part of this, because it's not, while it is part of the history, there's the rumors, of course, that it was helped built by the Children of the Forest, and then, if not that it was possible that a young boy, it said, who would later grow into Bran the Builder.
Yeah.
And so I just like that hint at Bran the Builder in childhood, as opposed to, we always hear Bran, is Bran the Builder, and he built the wall, and he built Winterfell. Well, we know that Bran the Builder built a lot of shit, and so it's really cool to see him in his childhood here, which gives more credence to the Bran is Bran the Builder. Yeah,
just a child building Storm's End, no big deal. Two riders begin to emerge from the camp under the walls of Storm's End, and Cat believes it must be Stannis, but notes that it is not the Baratheon banner that he carries with him.
Yeah, it's not the nice bright yellow of the Baratheon, but this one's kind of more of a gold with this red symbol in the middle. We know it's the heart with the stag inside of it.
Whereas the Baratheons, it's just a rearing stag with the crowd. Renly would be the last to arrive, as he had told her as much that he planned on arriving late. It is the sort of game kings play, she had told herself. And yeah, that's just the make them wait for me. And Stannis is decked out, and I didn't really go through what it is that he's wearing, but mainly that it's all red and yellow.
So he's
the
very
color of flames.
He's jewel encrusted, and which is odd, I thought, on rereading this, because I never noticed that small thing, that he's so embellished, because it isn't Stannis.
Yeah.
He's not the kind of person to decorate his armor and glam up. I mean, basically, it sounds like him and fucking Mel spent the last night drinking wine and bedazzling his shit.
Yeah.
So, okay, Stannis, weird flex, but all right.
And Kat notices at this point that his standard bearer is a woman, a red priestess, she notes, which we know is Melisandre.
Yeah, and she flexes her knowledge a little bit on, she knows that they're a very prominent religion over in the East, but it's not something that comes over here all that often, and so it's odd.
Stannis greets Kat pretty coldly and coolly with his normal courtesy, saying that he'd not thought to find her here. And she said she thought not to be here. And he apologizes for Ned's death, though Ned Stark was no friend to him. And Kat tells him he was no enemy of yours either, my lord. And he says, of course, the same gripe with Stannis. He should have been hanged, yet it was, given to Ned.
Yeah.
But all the same, he will deliver justice for Ned. And for Ned's murder. And Kat thinks how they love to promise heads.
Yeah,
these men who would be king.
Yeah.
Because Renly said the same, I will avenge Ned's honor and give you Cersei's head or Joffrey's head.
And she tells him, I'm pretty sure she said the same thing to Renly, I would sooner have my daughters back. Sansa down in King's Landing and Arya, who there's not actually been any word of since. And I thought, I don't remember ever picking up on the fact that she's not aware that, I always assumed she was unaware of the fact that Arya wasn't there.
Yeah.
But, I suppose, no, I guess that's not true. I knew that she was kind of iffy, but it's just funny how clearly she points out, no, they haven't actually said anything about Arya, really.
Yeah.
So
Stannis notes that when he takes King's Landing, he'll send her children if they're found, and Kat is aware that means alive or dead. To take King's Landing, though, he needs the men that follow his brother, and so that's the whole point of this meeting.
Well, she had and I really liked that specific exchange between those two. There was when she was like, "So, if you're supposed to be in King's Landing, then what the fuck are you doing here?" And he's like, "All right, so you're being pretty blunt. I guess I can respect that enough to give you a straight answer. I need the men.
Yeah.
I need the power." and these men belong to me by rights. They should be mine.
Yeah, she suggests putting aside the quarrel with Renly, and he says he has no quarrel with Renly, he only wants what's owed him. Renly's allegiance and the men that follow him. And then he asks, has House Stark thrown in with Renly? And she says she thinks this one will never bend, which, again, alludes back to Donald Noy's comparison of the three metals that the Baratheon brothers represented.
Right, he was the hard, stiff iron that won't ever bend
but will break. It's brittle. And she thinks, but she must try, and says that Robb is king in the north and offers his hand in friendship to all who would have him. And
Stannis tells him, kings don't have friends, only servants and subjects.
Subjects and enemies.
Oh, whatever, you know.
Yeah, which is telling about Stannis. There are no friends when you're a king. It's only subjects and enemies.
Which Davos would beg to differ, but we won't get into his little relationship.
Yeah, this is when Renly arrives and calls out, and brothers! And he's riding up. Brienne is bearing his standard, and Renly asks about Stannis' new one, saying that, it's different than it was before. And Melisandre explains, the king has taken the fiery heart of the Lord of Light for his sigil. And Renly says, oh, that's probably good, because it'd be pretty confusing for the battle if everyone had the same standard.
I love how nonchalant he is about that. Just, oh, that's good. At least we won't get confused about who we're killing tomorrow. That's friendly.
Yeah, Cat says, well, let's hope there is no battle. And Stannis, unsmiling, says that the Iron Throne is mine by rights. All those who would deny that are my foes. And Renly gives him the business, saying, the whole realm denies it, brother. Old men deny it with their death rattle, and unborn children deny it in their mothers' wombs. No one wants you for the king. Sorry. And Cat is just like, what the fuck? This is bullshit. This is folly. Yes. Tywin sits at Harrenhal, 20,000 swords around him. The remnants of the Kingslayer's army are gathering at the Golden Tooth, and more hosts are rising at fucking Casterly Rock. Cersei and her son hold King's Landing. The kingdom bleeds, and yet no one but my son lifts a hand to stop it.
And Renly's like, oh, well, Robb Stark might have won a few battles, but I intend to win the war. Fuck you, Renly.
Yeah.
Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, Stannis asks how Renly really wants to do that, and Renly wants Stannis to bend the knee, and that Stannis fucking flares up at that, and Cat yells out again, saying, I would knock your heads together if you were my sons. And Stannis says, you presume much. Robb is just as much a traitor as Renly, and his day will come. And the naked threat fanned her fury. And she stupidly mentions Joffrey as being the rightful legal heir still. And everyone is kind of like, what?
Huh? Yeah, because she calls him out. Well, by law, you're a traitor yourself because Robert had sons. And even Renly joins forces with Stannis here. He's, dear brother, she was traveling to see me when your letter arrived. So she has no idea that Joffrey's a product of incest. Yeah. That is why Ned died.
Stannis tells her that, and she is absolutely speechless. And Renly doesn't exactly believe it's true. He thinks that Stannis isn't clever enough to have come up with something like that.
Yeah, I can't believe that you would come up with such a clever ploy. And he breaks it down, because Cat's like, well, why didn't you go to Robert? And he's like, why would I? Robert bore no love for me, so I thought to go to Jon Arryn, somebody with sense, who Robert does love and will listen to.
Yeah, Catelyn had said that she realizes that Robert couldn't have known this, or Cersei would have been fucking dead a long time ago. And yeah, Stannis says that it would have come from him. It would have come as self-serving. Yep. It would have been, I'm your heir, so fuck your kids. But from Jon Arryn, and then Renly's like, kind of giving him shit, and he's like, do you think that he died by happenstance, you fools? Cersei had him poisoned because of what he knew. And Cat begins remembering Lysa's letter. Lysa has some news and starts fitting the pieces together. And it's like, oh, shit. Like, okay.
Now, I love how Martin does this because she's so confident and they're unreliable narrating for us.
Yeah.
Like, right here, well, Cersei did this and the Lannisters did this. And that isn't true either. Mm-hmm. As much as it seems the case, but fucking Littlefinger and Lysa are the ones that were doing all this shit. And so it's just neat seeing them spread these rumors we know to be false.
Renly tells Stannis that he may have the better claim, but he has the larger army, and he begins to reach into his cloak, and Stannis immediately grabs it for his sword, but he pulls out a peach, and he offers Stannis one from Highgarden. You've never tasted anything so sweet, brother. And Stannis is fucking feeling like, I didn't come here to eat fruit. Fuck you. And I wrote the quote because this is a pretty significant point for Renly, where he says, a man should never refuse to taste a peach. He may never get the chance again. Life is short, Stannis. Remember what the Starks say. Winter is coming. And so this, a lot of people view this as the absolute dividing factor between them, where Stannis is not a man who's going to stop and smell the flowers and taste the fruit.
Yeah.
Renly is.
And Renly at the same time is also a live life to the fullest kind of thing, is where I see it as well. You know, you never know what moment's your last, so...
And it's also a little foreshadowing for Renly's imminent death coming up in a chapter or two, where life is short.
I think it's next chapter.
Yeah, next cat chapter, yeah.
Yeah.
And so... Renly admits that he never really liked Stannis much, but he will gift him Storm's End as his brother's gift if Stannis, swears him fealty. And Stannis fucking, it should have already been mine. It was mine by rights, and yet it was given to you. And the same old fucking argument. And they start getting savage.
Yeah, they do. Well,
bringing in wives and...
Yeah, the first part, Stannis calls him out and says, don't threaten me. Renly gets way more, I feel like he channeled Robert at that point, because he was like, you'll know when I have not threatened you. Yeah. I was like, holy shit, Renly, I'm almost turned on by you. I'm about to Loras it up over here. And, yeah, I put it as, Stannis calls Renly gay, and then Renly has a go at Shireen for being disfigured, and but yeah, they're brutal, and it's in the way that only brothers can to each other. Because he doesn't just, oh, you're gay. He's like, yeah, well, you need to have an heir, but you're... Yeah, because Renly said Marjorie, he was like, yeah, she came to me a maid. And he's like, yeah, and she's like to be one by the end of the year still anyway.
Yeah.
And,
it ends with Stannis drawing his sword.
Yeah.
And this sword is fucking trippy.
Yeah, it's
glowy, and it's shimmery, and what the fuck is that?
I think it's just effects from
Melisandre,
oils and stuff. Yeah, Melisandre's toying with shit.
Okay.
Because she helps him dress and prepare.
Yeah,
so I'm sure she just put a little oil on there.
Because he calls the sword Lightbringer, but the one he drew out of the effigy was all burned and fucked, and this sword is beautiful. So, but as Stannis draws his sword, so does Brienne, and she tells him to put up your sword, sir. And fucking Cat's just like, Cersei is laughing herself fucking breathless in King's Landing right now.
And I think this is where George Martin pats himself on the back.
Because of the Tyrion
the last Tyrion chapter, where she, for the first time ever, lifted him up, swirling him around, laughing and cheering over the news that Stannis was going after Renly. And so she literally was laughing herself breathless at the thought of this here happening right now.
So Stannis,
it's like Stanley and Rennis.
Stannis just says he'll give Renly this night to rethink his folly, strike his banners, and come to him before the dawn, or he will destroy him. And Renly just, again, is like, do you see my army's huge? You'll destroy me, please. And it said that Stannis sheathed his sword, and some of the light seemed to go out of the world as his sword slid back into its scabbard. That's some crazy fucking enchantments.
I feel like Melisandre is actively, right there, focusing attention on that sword.
Could be. And so he gallops off, Stannis, and Mel, wheeling her horse around, says, look to your own sins, Lord Renly, before she takes off as well. And Renly and Cat begin their return.
I wrote down a quote from earlier that we kind of skipped over right after after Cat said that Cersei laughs herself breathless. Stannis says, I am not without mercy. And, and I just thought it was funny because the way that Martin puts it, the quote is, I am not without mercy, thundered he who was notoriously without mercy. Yeah. And just, that's not I suppose it is because it's from Catelyn's point of view, but just the way that it's worded was a lot of fun to read. Yeah. And let me make sure I didn't skip over anything else. Oh, yeah, because they got very wordy on who's following him and all the houses and everything.
Yeah. Renly just starts listing house names.
So, yeah, Mel turned around and hollered at Renly because he said, "I hope your God's a merciful one." And that was the point that this chapter is highly, highly discussed in the fandom and in the just in general because of the peach mostly.
Yeah.
And because of these two talking. But I've never really noticed that line. And I just thought it was super funny that he says, "I hope your God is a merciful one." And it's almost it sounds like he's asking for mercy.
Yeah.
But, obviously he's not. He's hoping that it's merciful for Stannis. But it's funny coming from him because that God supposedly is what leads to his death.
Birth the vagina demon.
So, what kind of mercy do you think that is there, Renly? Like, didn't seem too merciful to me.
Yeah. So Cat and Renly return to camp, and they're talking about the different laws of succession, and Cat is just suddenly very tired by it all. She's fucking exhausted. She realized that the Baratheons were gonna fight. They would have blood, and she couldn't stop it, and it was past time that she returned to River Run to close her father's eyes. And she thinks that she may not be a very good envoy, but she is a good mourner.
Yeah, so during that whole walk, it was basically Renly just boosting his own ego.
Of course.
How great of a king he's going to be, the great things he would do, why Stannis is bad. He's running his smear campaign right here.
Yeah.
This is election 2020 right here, and this is dang... I don't even want to compare him to a fucking politician.
And so we had learned that Renly actually tactically and smartly had split his army when he learned of Stannis' assault of Storm's End. His massive foot he had left at Bitterbridge with his young queen, while Renly had led his knights and free riders east in a mad dash to meet with Stannis. And she thinks how like Robert he was, only Robert had Eddard Stark to temper his boldness with caution.
Yeah, because unfortunately Renly got too antsy, and so he charged forward way even further and left his food supplies behind. And
so I was thinking of that. The only person Renly has is Loras, and
right.
we know Loras is just as bold and brash as
boosting
Renly.
his ego
and so,
and pushing him to
he doesn't have this Ned Stark who's like, maybe we shouldn't. And yeah, she accompanies Renly back to the royal pavilion. His captains and Lord Bannerman are all awaiting word of the parley, and he informs them that Stannis has need of blood, and that's that.
Yeah, so then the group, the advisors, decide, because he asked for their opinions.
Mathis Rowan is the only one who suggests leaving Stannis to a siege at Storm's End while they move on to King's Landing. And everyone else, led by
Randyll Tarly, he needs to be put in his place. He can't just sit here and do this
and gather strength.
Right. And so it's decided right then and there.
Yep.
And so then Renly starts issuing commands to them. You'll be here on the left. You'll be here on the right. And then they ask who's going to have the honor of the vanguard. And we know that that's usually the person who's going in on the suicide mission. They're the first one to crash into everything. It's not always a suicide mission, but first, who was it? It was some nobody that wanted it. And then Randyll Tarly was like, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
I'm clearly the most suited. I've been leading wars since before you were even born, so piss off. And then Renly decides, no, it'll be Sir Loras who leads the vanguard, which is ballsy, man.
Yeah.
Sending him out there, and decides that he needs a good, strong group to go with him. And so he sends Brienne to go with Renly.
Will be assisting
and
Loras.
She is just devastated.
Yeah, she doesn't want to leave him during the battle. Her place is at his side. But she says if she must, at least grant me the honor of arming you for battle. And someone in the back snickers, and Cat thinks that she loves him, the poor thing. She'd play his squire just to touch him and never care how great a fool they think her. And yeah, Renly grants her that and then tells them all to leave. Before that, though, when Renly had decided that it would be war, Cat had noted that she failed Robb, as she had failed Ned. And she asks for Renly's leave to go back to River Run, and he does not grant it. He tells her that she is to stay and watch and learn what happens to rebels, so your son may hear it from your own lips. And then they go into the vanguard leading, and he dismisses them all. And Cat asks him, well, can I at least visit the small sept in the village we pass so I may pray? And he grants that, telling Sir Robar to see her safely there and escort her back. And she tells Renly, you should pray too.
And he uses this as an excuse. Yeah, perhaps I should. Sir Loras, stay and help.
Well, he asks her for victory, and she says for wisdom. Like, yeah, no, not for victory. And yeah, Renly is like, Loras, help me pray.
Get down on your knees.
Yeah. Time to worship. And he wants everybody ready to march at dawn. And so everyone's got their marching orders, and they go. And Catelyn kind of knew Sir Robar from around.
Yeah, because it's Jan Roy's, Jan Royce's son or stepson or whatever.
Second son. And she asks why he's involved here. And he says, a second son must find glory where he can. I'm not the heir. So here I am. And she notes that he was of age with his king, roughly 21. But Robb, her king, had more wisdom at 15 than he ever did. Or so she prayed. And she returns to her small little camp.
Yeah,
where her men are just kind of milling about. Some are making tea. Some are sharpening their weapons. And
they ask, so what is it? Do we flee or do we fight? And she tells them, we pray.
We pray. We pray. And that's the end of Cat 3.
Fly, you fools.
Cat 3.
Cat 3.
A shorter chapter, not too much to delve into. Mainly it's the Stannis Renly interactions that are so good. But you got an inductee?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Loras Tyrell because, he's a beautiful, young, strong, gallant knight who is, he's basically the queen of the kingdom here if Renly was actually to be able to sit the throne.
Valid.
If Renly wasn't such a jackass, he could at least be the Lady of Storm's End.
Well, do you not think Renly's more the queen? I would think Renly is the queen.
No, I just, the way that Loras whispers in his ear and boosts his little, no, you're a strong king. You're a big, strong king. No, I think Loras would, but regardless of that, I'm going to give it to Loras just because, guy's living. He's he's doing some cool shit. So good for him. He's leading the vanguard of the king, his kings.
Well, he's going to be having a rough time of it here soon.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, cool. Loras. Mine's going to go to Melisandre. Mainly because I like the look to your own sins, Lord Renly. But if what you said is true and she's actively trying to magic the shit out of that sword to make Stannis just look cooler, I think that is a neat little thing to just see her doing her little Jedi Force powers right next to Stannis, but no one's really paying attention to her as she's making this sword look cool.
This is the sword you are looking for.
Just look to your own sins, Lord Renly, and knowing what's coming is just, there isn't a lot of attention brought to Melisandre here, and it's interesting that she is sort of on the fringes during this conversation, and so I would have really liked to have known what was going through her head during this discussion, but so Melisandre for just red priest in it, fuck up.
We didn't do a small council this time, so we're gonna read our favorite French fry, Julian's inductee, and then we have some past ones to catch up on.
Yeah.
And so I'll start here with Mr. Did you want to start? You start.
Yeah, I got Julian's. Julian says he also included the picture of Storm's End, which I loved.
His favorite interpretation, because he saw obviously thousands. Obviously. He found the one that he thought was the closest to what he was visualizing. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
He started this one with a couple quotes. This one will never bend. Yup. Cersei Lannister is laughing herself breathless, literally. And he says, I'm sorry, but I love Catelyn. She is the most precious mother there is in this story. Smart, observing, brave, careful, and yet each of her qualities can be found somewhere in one of her children, one way or another, and that's brilliantly written. The verbal jousting between the two Baratheon brothers was nice. It put into light the two personalities. I found Renly very proud and confident, and as Catelyn expressed, lacking a bit of modesty. Kings, right? Hashtag Renly Rage is about to pop up into your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. By the way, I love the description of Storm's End and looked it up on Google, found many different interpretations, and this is the one that got closer to my own imagination, which is why I shared it. Finally, my inductee is going to be the Lord Randall Tarley. Battle wisdom and putting some young fucker in his place. I liked it. Oh, and I heard he's got a great son beyond the wall, that one. Have a nice day, Valor Brotherius.
Nice.
Thank you, Julian.
If I can remember, I will put that picture up on the Facebook group.
Yeah, we'll share it out. Yeah.
And so, as always, thank you, great inductee. We also, as I mentioned, have some past inductees to read. Now, this is going back to, I believe, Bran what are we on? Like brand 5 now? Brand 4?
Brand 4.
So I think it was brand 2 or 3 when Jojen arrived. So we're going to go back to that one, and then I'm just going to go right in order of the inductees themselves. So this is from Goblin Queen, who has written in the past, and we always appreciate when she writes in, and she says, "Hello, fellow brothers. I'm stuck at home in Italy. Be safe.
Be very safe.
Fucking, which goes
I mean,
out to
for
everybody,
anyone, yeah.
But yeah, especially those in those lockdown areas. I'm stuck at home in Italy, so here's a bunch of scattered late inductees running away from the pandemic and straight into your recording studio.
They better wash their hands.
They're plague-free, no worries, says here. So first, Jojen Reed for bursting into the Stark's banquet, bringing wonder, just like the Green Knight at King Arthur's court.
I love that comparison.
And now I think that there's like a Sir Gawain show coming out on like Netflix or Hulu or some shit, unless it's a movie, but it looked fucking super sick. So I like that comparison. I was also a huge Pendragon fan growing up, so... Get over yourself. Young Meister Lewin, who strongly believed in everything the old disillusioned Meister criticizes now. I wish there was a book about him at the Citadel, earning those chain links. Hell yeah. Brienne of Tarth, or Brian, as the audiobook keeps pronouncing it. Catelyn might pity her, but this girl is young and fierce and growing. The giggling serving girls amongst the horrors of Harrenhal, and... that wild group of 80s rock divas that are the Bloody Mummers. Yeah. The sickly one with a leather cloak fringed with long blonde hair. How metal is that? She really enjoyed the last episode. Can't wait for the next one. Cheers.
Thank you, Goblin Queen.
We appreciate that very much.
Those are good inductees.
Excellent inductees. My favorite, I have to admit, is the Bloody Mummers, those 80s rock divas. Fuck yes.
Yes.
Fuck yes.
So... those were our thoughts, Goblin Queen's thoughts, and Julian's thoughts on Catelyn 3 and some other chapters. If you would like to write in and reach us as they did, you can do so many places. I am on Twitter at Carstark92. Nate is on Twitter at Manners Without, which is also the Instagram.
We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Brotherhood Podcast. We have a private Facebook group for patrons only. Pre-vet? Oh, pre-vet. I see. I gotcha. We're going. And that is patreon.com/Without Manners, where we also upload some bonus content, extra episodes, Winds of Winter sample chapter rereads.
Swag. We've got an Arian Winds of Winter sample chapter coming at you real soon. And so... yeah, check out Patreon if you're interested in that stuff.
Yep. We also, if you could do us a favor and review our podcast, we are, the easiest ways, if you go to ratethispodcast.com/brotherhood.
Bam.
We also have a sweet deal for those who are on Stitcher but don't have the premium yet. Premium is available for 1 month free trial using code BROTHERHOOD. Put that in there. Get yourself a free month. It's pretty cool. I think that's
about it.
That's pretty
Next,
much
we're going to be reading...
no, we need our Gmail. Gmail. That's the most important one, because that's where most people actually write to us, and that's without...
that's where we see it and get it instantly, so, yeah.
That, too. That's withoutmannersbrotherhood@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you would like to stay tuned, keep up with our episodes. Next episode coming out will be Sansa 3.
Sansa.
And Sansa 3... I don't actually have any idea what the fuck she's doing right now off the top of my head because I haven't looked into it. But if you would like to send us your inductees, send us those. And then I don't know who's after that. Is it Dany, I believe? Maybe a Dany chapter?
Maybe.
Whoever's after Sansa 3, get us those inductees too. You got a book. You can look up who it is. Anyway, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
Vala de Harris.
Peace.